Previously, we played around with some geom point or scatter plots. Today, I'm going to show you how to create some bar plots. And so follow along, add library ggplot, and we're going to create our own data frame as well, which we haven't had a lot of practice with. So we're going to create a data frame. We will assign a data.frame structure. So to get that structure, we include data frame as a function. The function data frame will return a data frame structure. So data frame, we're going to input random data. So I'm going to put people, and we're going to set people equal to, and remember the C is like, reminds me of column. So if I have a column of people, the header is called people, and the people that are in that column is whatever we want them to be. Let's do Dave, Jackie, Mark, and then we'll do for an example, we're going to repeat a couple of these. Let's do Mark a couple times, and let's add another one, Jill. Okay, so we have some people here. Now this data frame only consists of one column at the moment. So let's create another column. Let's add something by hitting a comma here. I'm going to hit enter just to get some white space in there. I want to add their ages. So we'll do the same thing. We will use a column, put that C there, and let's put in ages, 23, 25. I'm just making these up, and I think there should be at least 6 of them, right? And they don't have to be in any order, something like that. So there's some ages for us. And let's add one more and put gender in there. So a column that says gender, we're going to do male, female, male, 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 and finally female. Let's hit Command Enter on that and make sure your data frame, your DF, the object returned is a data frame. You can see it over here in our environment. Click on DF. You can see what I'm talking about. The columns of people, columns of ages, and gender, and they're all lined up. It's a little confusing sometimes because you're kind of looking at it horizontally here, and then when it actually displays in the GUI interface or the view, it goes downward. So let's keep that in mind. Okay, now we're ready to create some bar plots. Let me show you the basic way to do it. We're going to create our base plot. We're going to call that our, df base. We're going to assign this to df base, a ggplot, remember, and then we add the data is equal to our data frame that we just created above that, comma, our aesthetic. Let's say we want to plot our x equals, let's just go ahead and say people across the x-axis. And let's hit Command Enter on that, and you'll see there's no error, but it also doesn't plot anything. Even if I did df base here and I hit Command Enter, it plots. Remember, it just set up our plots, but it didn't actually plot anything because there's no geometry to this. So let's go ahead and add a geometry. Let's do a df base, and we're going to add a geometry. Geom, instead of point, we're going to do geom bar. Now inside of this bar, there is a parameter you have to set, and that is the statistic. We want a statistic to be equal to something. If we put in the statistic to equal count, let's see what happens. So we are gonna plot this right now in real time on line 9 by hitting Command Enter. And what you see here on the bottom is you see our names, Dave, Jackie, Jill, and Mark, but you see Mark has a count of 3 on the top left here. As you can see, I am in there 3 times, so that makes perfect sense. But what if we wanted to plot, instead of the occurrences of my name, but we wanted to plot some values, like let's plot our ages that correspond with our names, which is a little bit different here. So instead of our x equals people, which it will, we're also going to add an aesthetic for y is equal to age. And let's see what we get here. So we're going to do Command Enter to refresh our df base, and we're going to add to that base our geometry. Now let's see what happens here. We probably will get an error. So it says down here that the stat count must not be used with a y aesthetic. So we can't do a count here, but what we do is we put in identity. And once we do that, we hit enter, we have our identity. It just means, hey, use this age as the value on our y-axis. So we have our ages across the y-axis. However, as you can tell here, since my name was repeated 3 times, it actually added up our ages, so it aggregated them. So typically, let's just get rid of the other marks. Typically, you would use this. So we'll delete 2 males. And let's rerun this again, and it should make more sense. Did I get an error? Oh, we didn't get rid of the... just get rid of two ages as well. Run that again, and here we go. So now the ages are there. So 60, Jill is 60. You see it here, it lines up. So the difference between identity and count is very important. One more thing here, we want to also know which one's male and which one's female. That'd be kind of fun to have. Let's see if we can add anything to that. So we have a geometry of stat equals identity, comma, AES, fill equals, and we're going to put the fill as our gender. Let's see what happens there. And these are fun to play around with. So you can tell that the female is the red and the male is the green, and it did exactly what we were saying. Lots of different options on here. You have to also learn how to use the help features within R itself by doing question mark, and you can type in things like geom point or geom bar, and you can read the help down here. If that doesn't quite do it for you, when you go to use Stack Overflow or something in Google, you Google it, you're going to see things that are similar, and just getting used to the syntax is really what matters, because, you know, this could have easily have been, let's see what happens if we put this in our actual geom or ggplot up here as an aesthetic, and we say fill equals gender. Rerun that and run it. And it does the same thing. So when you see things that are slightly different, don't be afraid to try them out, is all I'm saying. But yeah, now we have a colorful, pretty chart, and that's the basics of bar charts. So when you use identity, you're actually using the y-axis as some sort of value in your data, in this case, our age. And when we're using stat, we're doing a count of how many occurrences. For example, let's do one more example, and let's go and say, let's make this 60 into a 23. So we should have, if we do the stat equals count again, but with the count, remember we can't have a y-axis because we're just doing a count of occurrences, and we're not doing people, we're doing age now. Let's keep the fill as gender there and just see what happens. So we hit enter. Oh, gender not found. Let's see. There we go. Something just wasn't loaded. And now we run this again, and we do have the gender works. Now, of course, this doesn't make too much sense because we have our ages as a continuous variable when we know it's discrete. So what we could do is, what we have to do is we can say factor age and do it this way. Because remember, it all depends on what you're doing, but if we do it as factor, it actually stacks them up like that. Again, factors are like categories. Instead of saying, hey, we have a continuous amount of ages, which we do, but not in this data. You know, we have a very specific age 23. It doesn't matter if you're 23 and a half or 23.2. So remember that if you run into that problem where this is gone and it looks like this, you know you're looking at a continuous spectrum between 0 and whatever that highest number is. You probably want this to be a factor or a category. I want to know how categorically, how many people are age 23 that's male and how many that are female. And that's what this chart shows you. Simple, and there's so many things you can do with ggplot. I just wanted to give you a very quick explanation of how bar charts work. So there you go. Let's move on to the next lesson.